Tindouf that the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, quickly addressed all the concerns raised by the population during his visit to the province on November 30 by deciding on a supplementary program worth almost 30 billion Algerian dinars. Entrusted by the President of the Republic, the Prime Minister, who was accompanied by the Ministers of the Interior, Local Assemblies and Country Planning, Brahim Merad, and Labour, Employment and Social Security, Faisal Ben Taleb, revealed the details of the additional program and inspected the work on the Gharj Bilad Tindouf Bashar Oran railway line project. Representatives of civil society in the province of Tindouf have underlined their attachment to the participatory choice and to working side by side with the public authorities in accordance with the constitution and the need to adhere to measures aimed at making the civil society a genuine and effective force for suggestion. They welcomed the visit of Prime Minister Nadel Arbaoui to the province of Tindouf on the instructions of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, following his last historic visit to the region. To the Middle East now, where the Zionist occupation forces carried out early today incursions into towns in the occupied West Bank, arresting dozens of Palestinians and ransacking their properties. According to the Palestinian news agency Wafa, a large number of Zionist soldiers stormed several neighborhoods in the cities of Nablus, Ramallah, Al Khalil, and Al Quds, attacking civilians with sound bombs and tear gas. To the northeast of Al Quds, the occupying forces attacked the village of Rafah, destroying numerous homes and buildings, burning dozens of vehicles. In Al Khalil, the Zionist soldiers, after having surrounded the region, made arrests among the local population and set up several checkpoints throughout the town. Similarly, in Ariha and the Balata refugee camp, the Zionist occupation army searched several Palestinians' homes, terrorizing them and ransacking their properties. The Ministry of Health announced that the death toll had risen to 21,507, while the number of wounded had risen to over 56,000 Palestinians. The United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees and Aid Convoy, said an aid convoy came under fire by the Israeli military in the Gaza Strip without causing any casualties. UNRWA's director in Gaza, Tom White, wrote on X platform that Israeli soldiers fired at an aid convoy as it returned from northern Gaza along a route designated by the Israeli army. On international convoy leader and his team were not injured, but one vehicle sustained damage. Earlier on Friday, the UN humanitarian chief Martin Griffiths wrote a post on X describing what he called an impossible situation for the people of Gaza and for those trying to help them. 105 journalists and media workers have been martyred in Gaza since the start of the Zionist aggression against the Palestinian enclave on October 7, media reports said on Thursday. In a statement, the media office in Gaza confirmed that journalist Mohammed Khaireddin and photographer Ahmed Maher Khaireddin were among those martyred after the family homes were bombed in Beit Lahia, north of the besieged enclave. With these two new martyrs, the number of journalists and media workers killed in Gaza by the Zionist occupation army has risen to 105 since the start of the genocidal aggression, it added. In ongoing assault from the land, air and sea, Zionist occupation forces are persisting in their indiscriminate bombardments on various areas across the Gaza Strip for the 84th consecutive day, claiming dozens of innocent civilian lives, predominantly children and women, over the last few hours. This morning, dozens of civilians were killed and injured as the occupation forces renewed their bombardment on several areas in central and southern Gaza, according to medical sources. The sources confirmed that 20 civilians were brutally massacred due to the airstrikes and artillery shelling targeting homes in the Nusayrat refugee camp in the central part of Gaza. Additionally, numerous individuals remain missing, trapped under the rubble of buildings hit by the Israeli bombardments. Said Bougazi has more in this detailed report.
Zionist occupation warplanes, artillery and naval vessels targeted residential homes, mosques and populated areas in both central and southern Gaza. The casualties extended to the El Amouri family in the Fakhari area east of Khan Yunis, with 11 fatalities and numerous injuries resulting from Zionist airstrikes. The eastern regions of Khan Yunis faced continuous airstrikes and shelling by Zionist warplanes and artillery. In Rafah, to the south, dozens of civilians were killed and injured as occupation forces targeted the Diab family home in the Shabura refugee camp. This followed a previous Zionist airstrike that claimed the lives of at least 20 civilians in Rafah. In the center of the Gaza Strip, occupation warplanes carried out a series of airstrikes on the El Maghazi camp, resulting in the murder of 14 civilians and the shelling of at least 2 houses, along with the bombing of the Zafaran Mosque in the camp. Zionist helicopters also fired machine guns at the homes of civilians in the central area of the Strip. Medical sources reported the arrival of 1 fatality and several wounded individuals at the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital due to Israeli attacks on the El Bureij refugee camp in central Gaza. In the meantime, a drone targeted a house near the El Shuhada Mosque in the Nusayrat refugee camp, coinciding with the Zionist Navy firing heavy machine gun rounds along the camp's coastline in central Gaza. In the preliminary toll, the ongoing Zionist aggression on Gaza since October 7th has resulted in over 21,000 victims, approximately 55,000 injuries, and thousands still missing, the majority being children and women.
And the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has warned against the rapid deterioration of the human rights situation in the occupied West Bank, calling on the Zionist occupier to end violence against the Palestinian population. The OHCHR report states that 300 Palestinians, including 79 children, have been killed in the West Bank and East Al-Quds between October 7 and December 27. The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, has said that the number of Palestinian children martyred in the occupied West Bank, including East Al-Quds, during 2023 has reached unprecedented levels. In a statement published on the X platform, UNICEF's regional director for the Middle East, Adel Khader, said that 2023 is the bloodiest year ever for children in the West Bank, including in East Al-Quds, as the violence resulting from Zionist attacks has reached unprecedented levels. Said Bouaziz has more again.
According to the press release issued by the UNICEF, 83 children have been killed in the occupied West Bank over the past 12 weeks, more than double the number of children killed in the whole of 2022, against a backdrop of increasing Zionist military assaults. During the same period, 576 children were injured and others were arrested, according to the source. UNICEF's regional director for the Middle East, Adel Khader, said that the occupied West Bank was severely affected by the restrictions imposed by the Zionist entity on movement and access. UNICEF has expressed its deep concern about the rights of children in the West Bank and East Al-Quds, including the right to education, safety and protection, as well as their inherent right to life. Children living in the West Bank, including in East Al-Quds, have suffered extreme violence for many years. However, the intensity of this violence has increased considerably since the beginning of the war in Gaza, concluded Adel Khader. Since the outbreak of the aggression against the Gaza Strip on 7th October, the Zionist occupation army has intensified its military assaults in the West Bank and stepped up the pace of incursions and raids in the towns and camps of this occupied territory, resulting in dozens of martyrs and hundreds of detainees.
And finally, in a direct plea to the White House, thousands of American activists have signed an online petition urging President Joe Biden to intervene immediately and cease the ongoing Israeli war on the Gaza Strip. The petition, which demands Biden to utilize his powers to halt the ongoing Israeli aggression on Gaza, also calls for imposing a weapons embargo on Israel, which has been carrying out daily massacres for nearly 3 months now against innocent, defenseless Palestinian people. With this, we come to the end of it. We'll meet you. So now we move on to our weekly programs with my colleague Jamal Silmani and my colleague Aziz Agassi. As for me, I'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin. Thank you.
The year 2023 was marked by Algeria's election as non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. The Algerian presidency has described the election as a diplomatic success, showing that the new Algeria is back on the international stage, adding that it reflected the international community's respect and esteem for the President of the Republic, Abdelmadjid Tebboune. In recognition of its pivotal role in the region, Algeria has been elected with an overwhelming majority of the 193 UN General Assembly member states in the first round of a secret ballot as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council for a 2-year term starting on the 1st of January 2024. Following the election of Algeria, her permanent representative to the United Nations, Ammar Benjama, had this to say.
I would like to extend my sincerest thanks to the friendly countries that voted today in favor of the Algerian candidature as a non-permanent member of the Security Council for the term 2024-2025. Algeria's membership constitutes indeed a high priority for Algeria's diplomacy and for President Abdelmajid Tebboune. This brilliant election is another testimony and a mark of recognition of Algeria's positive contribution and tireless effort to maintain peace and security at regional and international level. It is also a heavy but still honorable and very rewarding responsibility. Algeria will embrace this responsibility with a deep sense of humility, dedication, and commitment, and will contribute as a responsible and credible partner to enable global action in the face of global challenges by presenting ideas and initiatives that would enhance the role of multilateralism and maintaining international peace and security, thus meeting the need and the expectation and the aspiration of all mankind.
The adhesion of Algeria to the Security Council shows the international community's recognition of her contribution to the promotion of international peace and security and her commitment to defend fair causes with rigor and dedications. On the occasion, ceremony was organized here in Algiers in the presence of top government officials, diplomats and ambassadors. Two of the ambassadors who attended the ceremony had this to say.
I want to congratulate Algeria on its election. We are confident that Algeria will be a very good representative of Africa and a good representative for the Arab world. They have the principles, respect the principles of the UN Charter, for countries that supports sovereignty, sovereign integrity of states, as well as the self-determination of states.
Algeria has a big potential to contribute greatly for the work of the Security Council in the United Nations. We are the member of the non-permanent seat in the Security Council starting this year. So Japan and Algeria will be together in the Security Council next year. And that will give us a great opportunity to work together. And we know that Algeria is very firm in respecting and also safeguarding the principles of UN Charter, and which is very important in the current situation. And we are calling for the promotion of rule of law in the international society. And so we count very much on Algeria, and we are very much looking forward to working together with Algeria within and even outside the Security Council.
The election of Algeria is the result of the President of the Republic's vision, an approach to the preservation of peace and security worldwide based on peaceful coexistence, peaceful settlement of disputes, and non-interference in the internal affairs of countries. This year, 2023, was marked by the speech of President Tebboune at the 78th session of UN General Assembly in New York, in which he stressed the need to build a more just and equitable multipolar world. President Abdelmajid Tebboune said that for the past 50 years, the Algerian government has been pointing out how the global order's dysfunction prevents equality among member states, and that conflicts and crises have reached unprecedented levels and displaced millions amid an increasing number of emergencies worldwide. he stressed the necessity to uphold the rules of the Charter and establish a sound framework to strengthen international cooperation, adding that the global goals must be achieved in a multipolar world.
لقد حان الوقت للتفكير معا في سبل إعلاء قيم ومبادئ ميثاق الأمم المتحدة وتعزيز التزاماتنا الجماعية وإرساء الأسس المتينة التي تفضي إلى المزيد من التعاون العالمي الفعال بشأن القضايا الرئيسية حتى نتمكن من إشعاع السلم والأمن الدوليين وتحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة في ظل عالم متعدد الأقطاب.
President Tebboune says, quote, "The time has come for all of us to reflect together to uphold the principles and goals of the UN Charter and to strengthen our common engagement and to establish a sound framework for further effective international cooperation on major issues with the aim of consolidating international peace and security as well as achieving sustainable development goals in a multipolar world." End of quote. As Algeria prepares to become a non-permanent council member, it stands ready to strengthen cooperation with all council members and use her experience in mediation to seek peaceful solutions to conflicts. The president said it would bring the aspirations of the African continent and Arab world to the council as it focuses on lasting solutions to conflicts by dealing with their root causes.
ومن هذا المنظور فإن الجزائر التي تتأهب لتبوء مقعدها غير الدائم بمجلس الأمن تعي ثقة المسؤولية الملقاة على عاتقها بالنظر للتحديات الجمة التي تواجهها المجموعة الدولية. وأغتنم هذه السانحة لأجدد الشكر لكل الدول 184 التي صوتت لصالح بلادي، وهي ثقة ستحرص الجزائر على صونها أثناء عهدتها بالمجلس، وستسعى على تجسيدها بالتعاون الوطيد مع كافة الدول الأعضاء في مجلس الأمن وفي هيئة الأمم المتحدة.
The president says, quote, "Algeria, which prepares herself to be a non-permanent member of the Security Council, is aware about her responsibility, particularly in the face of the challenges in the international community is facing. Bearing all that in mind, I want to take this opportunity to once again express my gratitude to the 184 member states who voted in favor of Algeria, and this is an expression of trust that Algeria will seek to preserve throughout her term in the Security Council. Algeria is ready to strengthen cooperation with all member states in the Security Council." End of quote. The progress on the Council's reform is also essential. Algeria will continue its efforts to change the historic injustices against the African continent and support oppressed peoples fighting in their freedom. Pointing to the Algerian government's long-standing support for the Palestinian people's right to establish an independent state, he called on the Council to adopt a resolution to guarantee the two-state solution and end the unilateral practices of the occupying authority, including the settlements on the Palestinian territory. In his speech, he called for an extraordinary assembly session to grant the state of Palestine the status of a full United Nations member state. He stressed Algeria's readiness to share her experience in combating terrorism, which must be a priority for the entire African region.
welcome to this program devoted to the wonderful Sahara Desert of Algeria. If you thought that the Sahara was all about sand and camels, then you'd better think again. While you'll get your fix of unwieldy dromedaries and undulating dunes, this part of the Sahara is also home to an alien landscape of twisted stone forests, stark volcanic mountain ranges, and endless black gravel plains, as well as deep dark canyons. It's the trump card of Algerian tourism, and now that the security situation has stabilized in the country, thousands of visitors are heading back to marvel at its eye-popping natural beauty. Stretching from Ain Salah right down to the Mali and Niger borders in the Ahagar or Hogar National Park, created in 1987 to safeguard the considerable riches of this part of the country, it's one of the largest protected areas in the world. As its heart is the laid-back town of Tamanrasset, resting at the foot of the Broden Hogar Massif. The craggy plateau, that sleepy oasis of Janet, is known as the Tassili, also one of Algeria's protected areas. Its caves and canyons hide an abundance of engravings and paintings illustrating the once blooming plant and animal life of the Sahara. Now we'll talk about Algeria's heartland of the Tuareg, traditionally a nomadic people who have roamed the desert regions of Algeria and its neighboring countries for many centuries. You'll see beautiful women swathed in brightly colored fabrics and refined silver jewelry, and plenty of veiled blue men, as Tuareg men are sometimes called after the traditional color of their robes. The route of Hogar, one of the major routes across the Sahara to the West Africa, is gaining popularity once more after many years in the wilderness. From El Golia, it extends south across the Tedmate Plateau, which stretches on like some sunburnt pancakes, the largest thing in sight be a rock the size of a tennis ball. It then passes through in Ain Salah, a town famed for its salty water, past the canyons and mountains of the Tassili Dimidid, or Tassili. Let's recall that Tassili means plateau in the language of the local Tuareg. And it goes through the steep gorges of Araq, and then on this region's hub, the capital, Tamanrasset. From Temnaraset, the road continues for another 400 kilometers to Ain Gizem, which sits near the border crossing into Niger. Much of the area covered in this section is protected territory and part of the Ahagar National Park.